Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to Red Hot Talk once again. And we are getting very, very close to Christmas now, Rod. And have you done all your Christmas shopping?
I hadn't last week. I was getting quite nervous, but I think I'm on top of it now.
Oh,
But
right.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yep.
But this year, amongst the family, we're doing a secret Santa. So I've got a particularly awkward family member, and
Okay.
I just hope I've got
Right.
it right.
Right. It's interesting. Like Secret Santa is not really a Secret Santa, at least in modern days. We did the same thing for a few years in a row. And just a few years ago now. I haven't done it for a couple of years. But remember the time when we did it, we call it Secret Santa, but then everyone sent each other a wish list.
No, no, we're not. We're not. We haven't. We haven't even done that. My daughter's organised it via a site that
Right,
handles these
right.
things, and it's so far, it's
Yep.
been pretty watertight. Nobody knows
Okay.
who's, and I'm even making my gift tag anonymous. Do you know how far I've gone? I've gone
No.
so far as to create a tag digitally with no handwriting
Oh,
because my handwriting's terrible and that'd be a giveaway. So whether or not it's going to work, I don't know. But it's all part of the fun, I guess.
oh, that's fun. That's fun. Well,
I
I look forward to hear your story afterward. Then.
Yeah, I just hope I don't get something terrible after all the effort I've put in. Like
Bet,
10
yeah.
pairs of socks or something.
Or Christmas scarf that you can only wear once a year.
Oh, Jimmy,
Well,
I hadn't thought of that. That's just made me feel worse now. Never mind. I'll pretend it's great. I'll pretend it's great.
oh, it's a little bit of a fun. I mean, I hope everyone's
Yeah, yeah,
feeling
yeah.
feeling a bit festive now. And let us know in the comments. How far have you gone with your Christmas shopping? Have you done many thing to treat yourself? Bought any new gear, new camera, new lens, and new accessories that you would like to share in the comments? That will be quite interesting to hear. I got a few things myself. Partly because of the business, but partly also because I thought that I might want to try something new. I think last stream I talked about. Oh no, I actually did show you guys right the new 360 drone. I had the opportunity
Yep, yep.
to fly it once this week because the weather had been terrible this week. So I only be able to went out for, just about an hour, just have enough good lights to take it up in the air, fly around a couple of circles and come back because the weather was really, really bad. But it's interesting. It's a very interesting technology. I wouldn't say it's the best drone for cinematography stuff, like cinematic
Mm,
shots. It's more about creative high-speed action shots, I would say, and
yeah.
because of the 360, the nature of 360 stuff, and it's more suitable for something that move a little bit faster, something you can do a lot of transitions and things, not so much about slow panning, kind of getting this really wide angle, slow motion shot is nothing about that, I don't think.
It's all about like high energy POV stuff.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. But it is fun, if you just glide around using your goggle, you literally you like flying because you can really move yourself in 360, looking up and looking down, looking left, right. It is kind of cool, you're just like you're flying in the air.
Yeah, that I'd hate that because you're not looking where you're going.
No.
And with some 360 gear I've tried, it's not so easy to recenter your view on where you actually are going. So
Oh
that's
no,
a bit
they
scary.
they they thought about that. So there is a quick
No,
button when you press, you
good stuff. Thank
center yourself
heavens.
back back to it, or the drone was centered back to where you're looking at basically. And so that's quite helpful.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yep.
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about today's topic. And Rod suggested it, by the way. It's about analog, and I
You
like
can blame
analog.
me for
So
this.
we can have a thing or two about talking about analog photography. And the title, of course, is "Should Analog Die?" We would like to hear your thoughts about it, and I mean, I have a thing or two to say about it. But let's see what Rod say. You suggested this today. Let's hear your thoughts about the whole idea. Why would you bring out this title? Should analog die?
Well, I think for a while I was kind of thinking the other way when everything I was writing about and talking about and shooting with was digital, had been for years, and I was getting a little bit irritated by all these hipster types shooting on films I'd never shoot on, using cameras I'd never use. And I suppose I felt for a while that it is just a fad,
Yeah.
but it hasn't actually gone away. So I think I had a bit of a shift in my thinking earlier this year when I tested the cheap and cheerful Kodak half frame camera. And it was like stepping back in time to when I first started in photography, shooting film, and I remembered all the things I associated with it. Like you can't look at your images after you've taken them as film. You have to take them and keep shooting.
Yeah.
Then you have the wait and the anticipation before they come back. And then the next thing that happened was that I found out a friend of mine showed me his negative copying setup, and it's just basically a light table
Yeah.
and a camera with a macro lens and a negative holder. And I tried myself back at home, and
Yeah.
do you know what? It's just so easy. All these years when I was thinking that analog was just too much trouble, in my head, I was
Yeah.
thinking film scanners because they are expensive, they're getting hard to get, they're so slow to use,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
just thought it's not worth it. But these two things, using a film camera again and copying my negatives with a camera, have just
Yeah.
completely opened my eyes. It's so easy. It's so easy.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I've got to try that myself, you know, and you know, like the setup you suggested the last couple of times. You know, just get the
yeah,
use the macro lens, use the film holder, and then shine a bit of light through it, and just capture it. I mean,
I
I wouldn't want to go back to the film scanner thing. You know, like I told you last time, it took me years to
yeah,
digitize all my negatives. It's just way too long.
yeah. And I found as well that copying my negatives this way, I don't get anywhere near as much trouble with dust as I did with the
Ah,
film scanner.
right,
I
right.
don't know particularly why. Maybe it's because the film scanners exaggerate surface imperfections. I've no idea.
Mm,
But you know, my negatives, some of them are past any hope because my home developing wasn't great and there are scratches. But if
yeah.
there's like hairs or dust or anything like that, with today's software, it's gone in a moment. So it's brilliant.
Mm,
But if my tip to anyone copying with a camera would be obviously get your negatives and your camera perpendicular
yep.
so that you don't get any kind of perspective distortion. But
Yep.
then don't move the camera, just move your negatives. So just move your light or your light table or your film holder, just move that
Yeah. Yeah.
from
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
frame to
Yeah.
the next and keep the
Yeah.
camera where it is. But you know, doing a whole film in a quarter of an hour, you can't that when I think back to my film scanning days, you'd like
Yeah.
set
Yeah. Yeah.
aside an
Yeah. Yeah.
afternoon, wouldn't you? But
Yeah.
no, it's simple.
And to be frank, I mean, if anyone to use you know, like to make any modern versions of film scan, I know some people still, I mean, some camera well, some makers still do
Plastic.
yeah,
Plastic is one.
Plustek still do film scanner, but it's still pretty much an old tech, you know, and they haven't really
Yeah, yeah,
upgraded the technologies behind it, underlying
yeah,
technology. If they have done it, I think it'll be a very good and easy, quick scanner that we could have today. You know, like you said already, software plays a big part, and even in the old days, scanning software plays a very important role in the whole scheme of thing. You know, you got a good scanner to start with, because there's, you know, you can imagine the old CCD sensors. They're very weak. You know, you need a lot of light to make sure they can capture all the details and everything like that. And imagine throwing like a stack sensor that we have today in one of those scanners, and then you have LED lights. Like, you know, light that we have now is 4, 5, 10 times brighter than what we had before, and the whole thing could be a lot better. And then you got a better processor, faster processor now. Scanner softwares are way better now, and yeah, I think if they ever make one by any like reputable company like Epson or something, like just make something brand new, it
Well,
will be
I
really
think
really good.
I think the issue with old scanners is the way they operated, which was to move the kind
Yeah,
of scanning sensor across the frame,
yeah.
and it's like it. I had an old Minolta Demarge 5400. Anyone else have one of those? They were like affordable 35mm film scanners, but every image was like 5 minutes.
Yep. Yep.
Um, whereas every image, if you copy with the camera,
Yep.
is what, a minute, 30 seconds, no more than that.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And what
yeah.
I did find is that all my past negatives, the contrast range in the negatives is lower than my camera can comfortably record. So
Yep.
there are no issues with dynamic range at all.
No, no, and
So
don't forget that we're not really developing the films, right? You're literally just shining light through the negatives
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
capture with the camera.
yeah,
So with the like what we just talked about, the sensor technology is so advanced now, so much better than before. It's very easy to do just that. And remember my Nikon film scanner, and you talked about five
oh,
minutes
cool
per
scan,
per
yeah,
per
yeah,
frame. Yeah,
yeah,
my
yeah,
scanner do a lot of cool stuff back in the days. I mean, it has infrared dust detection. It
yeah.
has
That took
triple,
even longer. Yeah,
yeah, and you can enhance the quality by doing triple pass, or double pass, triple pass, basically scanning multiple times, trying to capture different dynamic range, different lights, and trying to shine through the highlight, the shadow, and
yeah.
midtones. The whole entire thing, if it take all those boxes, it's like 10 minutes a frame,
It's painful. It's
easily,
painful. Yeah, yeah.
and it's really, really annoying.
I think so. And I would say having, because I'm able to compare them, the images I get from copying with a camera are of, I would say, noticeably higher quality than
Yeah.
my film scans done on a proper film scanner, and they're
Yep.
quicker. So it's kind of like a no brainer, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So so
I'm definitely gonna try. Yes.
I think that, and the sheer number of press releases I get from Harman and Lomography and others about new films,
Yes.
I'm starting to think, I think the whole thing is stabilized.
Hmm.
A few years ago we might have thought we'd seen the last glimmer of analog photography, but
Yep.
now I kind of think it's like steadied out at a
Yes.
certain level, and we can be a bit more optimistic.
I mean, it's interesting, Paul. I don't know what everybody is thinking. It's the same way that I'm thinking. Is that I think it reached the point now. Those who are really into photography, who may have grown up with analog photography, or some younger people who just recently discover photography, and they might have studied photography from photography schools or high schools or uni and things like that. They will have touch base on analog one way or the other because that's part of the journey, right? And the whole entire thing is actually quite rewarding. Like digital in some ways is very easy because you see the result instantly. So that from a learning perspective, that may not be a bad thing because you can improve fairly quickly. And trying to understand the exposure triangles, and trying to understand sensitivities, the effects of shutter speeds and aperture, about depth of field and everything like that. It's very, very quick and very, very easy to learn. But at the same time, analog is such a slow process by modern standard. It's not easy for people who may just be shooting digital for their entire life and suddenly trying to switch back to analog. I don't think they could. It will be a cultural shock to them, right? And it's almost like people driving automatic cars. Suddenly, you throw them a manual car. They just, oh my god, what is that stick there? Well, I can't even put into gear.
No, I agree. I agree. I think it is a bit. You have to have a bit of a mental shift to accommodate analog. But one of the things I have noticed is that analog images are very different to edit
Yeah,
to digital images,
yeah,
and I find I've got very different habits when editing analog film
yeah,
to images captured with a digital camera, and there's
yeah.
some very curious technical differences. For example, that with digital you have continuous tones, don't you? So if you have an
Yes.
8-bit image and it's extended tonal range too far, you start getting banding
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
artifacts and blotches. You don't get that with analog scans or analog
No.
copies taken with a camera. And I think it's because of the granularity of the film.
Yeah.
You don't have continuous tones. You actually have very tiny grains which look like continuous tones from a distance. So you don't seem to struggle with the same kind of artifacts if you start really heavily manipulating an image. It's quite curious, but my analog images survive like heavy black and white editing, for example,
Yeah.
much better than digital ones. And it's curious. It's curious,
It,
but it's
it, it certainly is. And but as another point I want to throw into the mix as well is the for digital photographers that we are very used to shooting raw. I mean, for those who are very enthusiastic about the whole scheme of thing, we shoot raw, and we know that we can be in control about multiple elements of it. The shadow, the highlights, the saturations, the contrast, and everything like that. But with analog, you literally don't have any control unless you're developing your own film. You learn how to do the darkroom stuff, right? Dodge and burns and everything like that. You lose all that control that we are now taking advantage of. You shoot the film, and whatever you expose the thing to, the latitude is very, very limited. Especially if you shoot positive films or some films. Some films some films are better than the other, but in general, you don't have the same latitude or flexibility when it comes to editing the image that we have in digital these days. You can easily, with some of the modern cameras, especially larger format digital cameras, you have, 14, 15 stop the dynamic range. You can shift, quite easily either way. If you want underexposure shot, if you want overexposure shot, or if you miscalculated the shot, and then you can fairly easily rescue the shot. If you only like 1 or 2 stops away from the ideal point, you can still kind of do something about it. But with analog, it's not like that, right? And it's not going to be the same kind of control that you have with digital.
I don't know. I think that would certainly apply to slide film. You don't seem to see a lot of slide film about on the market at the moment. You can get black and white and color negative, but you don't see a lot of slide film. I think probably slide film processing is a bit more specialized. But no, slide film doesn't have a lot of exposure latitude. But I would say that when working with my old black and white negatives, I think there is the latitude is there, but it's different. So if I take a straight capture of one of my negatives, it's actually quite flat. There's no dense shadows. The highlights are a bit off-white. But if you then use levels and curves to kind of normalize everything, I found that there is actually a lot of tonal range in those negatives. There's you can't bring up the shadows like you can with digital, but you can bring back the highlights often to a ridiculous degree. So that if you're a fan of dramatic skies and burning in skies and sunsets, if you've got this on a black and white negative, it's quite surprising what you can pull back in those bright areas. So I don't know. I think the latitude is there, but it's just a bit different. I think there's a particular challenge with color negative film because you've got the orange mask.
Yes.
And there are ways of getting around that where you can fix that. But they're quite manual and it's difficult to make them consistent. So I think the issue is that the photo labs and the print papers they use to give you your prints back when you take them to a lab, they are set up for this orange mask. But in photo editing software, there's no direct provision you can't just subtract that orange tone in software. There aren't really any tools for doing that. And you can kind of fix it up with levels and curves, but you're likely to have to do something different, slightly different for the next image, or slightly different adjustment again for the next one. So it's not straightforward with color negative. It can be done, but black and white negative is very straightforward.
Oh yeah, black and white is easy. Even developing is a lot easier than colors.
They're looking at my old negatives. I'd still manage to muck it up quite a few times. And the problem I have is that I live in an area with hard water, so you've got a lot of lime scale in the water. So you can't win. If you just hang your film up to dry when it's still wet, you'll get drying marks from the droplets of water. If you use a squeegee, you're going to drag those tiny gritty fragments right down the whole roll of film.
It's gonna scratch
So
it.
yeah, so you could use distilled water and wetting agent. That would be the best way, but it's not easy. It's not easy.
No, no,
That's what
no.
I
That
think. I think these days I'll probably send it off to a lab. Just be lazy.
yeah. But I mean, to be quite frank, I mean, I've sent it to labs many times in recent years, and not many labs can actually do a proper job these days when it comes to
Really,
yeah. I mean, I had bad experience with some of the labs that scratched my films, or
really.
there's yeah, they scratched my film. They got streaks along the entire strip. Yeah, you just tell them off, but what can you do? You really ruin the film. So but luckily none of those films were particularly important. For most of them are just test
Mm,
prints. And but if they are really important to me, I'll rather send it to a perhaps slightly more professional lab, which they still exist. You just have to find them, but they
yeah,
don't. They will charge you for that, but they will take extra
yeah.
care for development. So and you're probably paying about 2 to 3 times the price as the normal high street stuff that you would take it to. Um, but overall, I mean, I just want to hear from you guys, your thoughts about analog. I don't know how many of you still shoot analog. I shoot less in recent years. Although having said that, I just showed Rod I got a new analog camera. So this is the brand new Lomography MCA. Uh, my review will be coming because at the moment I'm still testing it, and I'm one of the few photographer in the UK to receive the production version of this camera. So I'm currently conducting some tests, and it's gonna take a while because it's analog, it's not digital. So and I have to take a few rolls, and even the few rolls, you talk about limited number of frames, and how many of those frames are actually good to show you guys, I'm not entirely sure.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
And then I have to develop them. That's another thing.
Yeah.
All of these are very time consuming. It's not like digital camera or lenses that I review. I could chuck them out fairly quickly once I started testing them. This does take a little bit of time, but overall, I'm quite impressed with the camera. But that besides the point about analog, that I want to talk about is that when I started testing this camera, when starting to throw a couple of rolls of films into this, it kind of brought back all those good memories when I used to shoot film, and it really kind of reminded me how slow the entire process was. For instance, I can't do, well, at least in this particular camera anyway, I can't do 15 frames per second, and I can't do continuous AF. This is a very simple point and shoot. It does have autofocus, but it's not what we use now in modern digital camera. Even with
Yes.
autofocus, is let me see if you can hear it. I'm not sure if you can hear it. And it has that really old school sound. Can you hear that?
Yeah. Just about. Yeah.
Let's do that again. So it takes about, I would say, half a second to acquire focus. And
Oh right.
so
So
yeah,
that.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not how we are used in modern digital cameras these days. Things are almost instantaneous. When you point something, you half press it, it's almost there straight away. This is quite a bit slower. And obviously, I haven't developed film yet. I don't know how accurate the autofocus is with this lens, but from the early prototype testing video that I've seen from other YouTubers in the States, it seems to be fairly accurate, and it does have a good lens. So I'm looking forward to see the images, and I will let you know all about it when I do have the prints back. But overall, I'm just talking about it in terms of experience and about speed of shooting. It really does remind me a lot of the good old days when I used to shoot with my Canon SLRs and all the Leica films that I used to put through. And I haven't actually shot a single roll until I get this camera, for about 4, maybe 5 years now. And that's how long I haven't touched films. And I've been working digitally, as a photographer for the past few years, and rarely these days will ask me any clients that will ask me to shoot analog, and because I did tell them, if you want me to shoot analog, it's gonna cost you. As soon as they hear the price, they said, no, that's too expensive.
So I guess if you were to use it professionally, you'd be shooting color negative anyway, which kind of
Yeah,
rules out home processing. I did double with this for a while. I mean, black and white is easy because the chemistry, you can just adjust your development time according to the ambient temperature,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you've only got 3 steps anyway. But with color, with C41 processing for color negatives,
Yeah.
It's got to be the right temperature. Your time has got to be exact. And you've got like,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how many it is, but you've got 5 visits chemical baths to swap out as you go through. So you can do it at home, but you'd want to wait till you had several films. And honestly, I think you'd probably think, "Do you know, I should have sent it to the lab. This is too
And
much like
and
hard
and
work."
and possibly you need a dedicated room in if you're lucky enough to have
Yeah,
a room, because you want the equipment there, you want to have a completely darkness there,
yeah,
and because you'll be spending a lot of time in that dark room developing them, and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not 2 minutes job, you talk about quite a bit of
No,
time.
and it needs a certain amount of concentration and method too, because
Yeah.
if you're halfway through a color process and you forget which bath it's in, or you forgot to start the timer,
There, you're done.
you're in trouble. You're in trouble. You're done. You're done.
You, not
But
not like not like Lightroom. You can stop halfway and come back after dinner.
Well, but I mean, if your clients wanted black and white, Jimmy, you could go out. You could go out in the afternoon, develop the film in the
Yeah.
evening, scan it overnight, and get the
Well,
things over in the morning. Who
fun,
who
fun,
needs that pressure though?
funny you said that. I actually had a couple of kits somewhere in my studio that is actually self-development kit. So it's all in one unit. So like you load, first of all, because you still have to load the film into the machine, and but all the solution you add to it, everything like that, it can be done without a darkroom. So it's actually a very
Yeah,
interesting thing. I've got it for about maybe
yeah.
6 years now. I haven't even tested it, and then so I'm maybe at some point, once maybe going back to analog, I will try to do a little bit of that.
I think Lomography. I think it's the Lomography sells a daylight loading tank. You don't
Yes, it
even
does.
need a changing bag. Yeah, is that the
Yes,
one you
yes.
mean? Yeah,
No. I
yeah.
had another version
Ah,
of that, and it's slightly more advanced and complicated than the one that Lomography has. The Lomography
right.
ones is very It's very simple
Yeah,
unit.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and but it's slightly more than that. I mean, it comes with pre-packed chemicals and everything, so you don't have to
Oh,
change everything. You literally have to do 2 runs, and the film is
oh,
developed. So you still have to manually roll it. You have to time it and everything
yeah.
like that. And but in terms of process, it's quicker. But the loading and unloading can be a little bit more cumbersome compared to Lomography's one.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Does anyone remember shooting film 34 millimeter? Don't wind the leader all the way back into the cassette because you're doing that last turn, aren't you? Trying to get a feel for when it comes off the take-up spool, so you don't lose the leader inside your cassette. That's annoying.
Uh,
But all I just use a changing bag. Um,
yeah.
so for those who, I'm sure a lot of people here know what changing bag is, but it's basically a big light-proof bag. You put your arms in elasticated holes, and then you have to do everything by touch. So you have to cut off a film leader with a pair of scissors, which you
Yep.
can't see,
Yep.
and then thread it into the spool of your developing tank. Get that into the tank. Get the lid on. Then you can take everything out. But a pair of sharp kitchen scissors in a completely enclosed bag that you can't see when you're
Yep.
doing everything by touch. It's a great way to cut your fingers, cut a hole in your changing bag, or just learn some new curse words because it's just not going right.
Well, I mean, it's actually not too bad. I mean, my brother used to shoot analog a lot, and to save money, it would be even more so now these days, is that he will buy, like, one of this cassette, the big cassette, and he just buy these
Yeah.
empty canisters, and he just load the film
Oh,
himself.
yeah, yeah,
So he did
yeah,
everything in the changing bag. So he put a cassette in there and load the film like by touch. He did it like 5-6 rows at a time, and yeah, he told me that the first couple of rows were difficult, but once you get a hang of it, it's actually quite quick and quite easy. And then he just did the whole cassette, literally lasted about 5-6 rows. I can't remember exact number now. And he said he did it in
yeah.
about like 15 minutes, so it's actually pretty quick.
Really,
Yeah,
that's not bad. That's not
yeah,
bad.
yeah, yeah.
But I don't think I could go back to doing that. I gave away a lot of my developing kit a little while back. But yeah, just reading comments by this side towards screen. Yeah, he's saying developing film is only half the fun. Try printing your own film in darkroom, burning in. Nothing makes you appreciate tech more than doing that. Yeah, I've done my time in a dark room. I have. I I can still smell the fixer.
But more so, like, not just about developing as well. We literally just touch base on the shooting experience side of it. And I think that the whole process, the slow process of taking analog, it's quite refreshing in some ways, because we are so used to speed, in the past 20 years, and everything just become faster and faster, especially with all the AI automations and text and recognitions and whatnot and everything. It's almost like kind of like taking over a lot of the intuitions and the reactions that we used to train to do photography. And until you're starting to pick up a film analog cameras, and you're starting to, I needed to actually time myself for the shot. I need to execute that shot, because you only get one frame.
Yeah. Well, it's a good point. I think if you work backwards, you would say that analog is very difficult and demands your attention. But I think if you look at it from the other aspect, I think from the other angle, I think what has happened is you switch to digital. And I'm just talking about myself and what I see of other people and what's happening online. My theory is we've got a fixed amount of attention,
Yeah.
and if you take 10 shots in a day, they're getting 10 times the attention each than if you shoot 100.
Yep.
Or 100th the attention if you shoot 1,000. I didn't mean for the maths to get that complicated, but you know what I mean. Your attention is finite,
Yes.
and if you take a whole load more photos, it kind of makes sense that individually you're just going to give them a quick glance and a swipe and on to the next one. Whereas
Yes.
if you're only shooting a handful of frames, you're going to give them proper attention.
Absolutely, and I think that in terms of the mindset as well, if you shoot digital, for instance, if you see some good light, you see some good position, good kind of composition, you really want to take the shot, and you're waiting for something. Let's say for street photography, waiting for something to happen, and a lot of the time, like you take a couple of test shots, and then you see, okay, that's the kind of conditions I want to shoot in, and that's the kind of setting that I want to have in my final result. Then you wait for something to happen, which is kind of like a normal thing to do when you're standing on the street and trying to do something. But what happens afterward is that when you do see something potentially is going to happen, you're going to start spraying, and that's in modern terms, because because you don't know when that frame is going to come, or when the perfect posture, the perfect kind of position. You're going to start almost like pre-capture, for birds and for animals. You just want to capture that really good moment, right? And you just spray it. You're hoping that you're going to capture that one frame that's going to be the perfect shot. And I'm so used to that now, because commercially I do that a lot, simply because I have to deliver to the clients and I have limited time, and it's very easy for me to do multiple shots at a time, especially with young kids. You only want to capture them smiling nicely, no blinking and things like that. It's very hard to achieve, let's say, with analog these days, and so digital helps me in that regards. But I can also see the same thing happening with a lot of street photographers, simply because I do hear that a lot. Some of them, if they're standing on the street, I could hear them spraying everything. I could hear the clicking sound from the camera, almost like 20, 30 frames per second. Really just like that. I was, oh my god, it's got about 20 frames there. But with analog, you don't have that kind of mentality when you shoot it. You see the light, you measure the exposure, and you're just gonna wait. And you just have to time yourself. You just hope you press a shutter at the right moment and capturing that moment that you really want to capture. You don't have that luxury that what we have today.
Well, I think realistically we can't expect analog to do what digital can.
No.
But at the same time, I think we can say that there are some things that analog does that we miss.
Yes.
And we can still do if we decide to. And I think that it does make you take photographs in a different way. I would say we can come back to how we take photographs, but I would say as well that I shoot a lot of black and white. That's one of my favorite things. the my black and white negatives look quite different to my digital ones. And it's not a case of just doing a little bit of editing here and there. They
Yeah.
have a fundamentally different look and feel. And it's made me realize I've copied, or I've, however you want to put it, I've photographed or scanned probably about 30 of my old films.
Yep.
So I've got quite a broad base of pictures to compare with.
Yep.
And the look of those images is what made me get started in black and white. But if I shoot digital black and white, it's different. It's not really easy to get back to that classic black and white negative look. It just isn't. And I've been editing images for a long time. I think if there was a straightforward way to do it, I probably would have found it. But then something else interesting has happened too.
Yep.
That it's become obvious to me very quickly that 35mm negatives don't have the same level of detail as modern. Not the same at all. But strange enough, I find that quite easy to accept. If they look sharp enough at the size I want to display or print them, that's enough. I don't go pixel peeping because I know if I do, there won't be anything to peep at. So it's made me appreciate the image as a whole.
Yep.
Instead of just getting too enmeshed in all the technical stuff. Because I think digital photography has kind of led me in a technical direction which doesn't help your creativity. You become a pixel peeper. Not everyone. It's turned me into one though.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think the same way can goes with painting, and because these days, of course, painting is still a big part of in the art world, right? And oil painting, water painting, everything, any sort of painting is still a very big part of the modern artwork. But at the same time, there are a lot of digital artists now. They still kind of using a digital pen, painting on the digital canvas. They're using digital tools, but it's kind of almost like the same argument, right? And instead of using actual real oil paint itself, mixing it to the color that you want to, and then you kind of paint over a canvas. You're using a screen, using a digital pen, and then use whatever software you use, and then you paint something you like. The process problem.
An eyedropper, and a rather than a paint palette.
Yes, pretty much, and it's kind of like very, very similar thing that we're talking about now, and if that is the case, I mean, I certainly don't think that analog should die. That's kind of go back to the topic today.
No, neither do I.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the analog should stay, and analog is part of the photography history. I think it's part of, it's quite important in the learning process as well. If you're people who are serious about photography, they should at least try analog photography. And there's nothing wrong with digital, and that's not what we're trying to say. Digital is fine. I use digital for my work now, or even for most of my photography these days, but trying the analog is definitely a very different experience, and you learn to appreciate a lot more from a creation point of view, from the technical approach to controlling the camera, because we are talking fundamentals here. We're not talking about scrolling through 20 different subpages of a menu in the back of the screen, because analog photography is all about exposure triangle and nothing more than that. It's all about exposure. There's no subject recognitions. There's no this and no that. You don't have to worry about any of those stuff. You just have to focus on taking that picture, and that's all it is.
Yeah, it's a completely different experience, and I also think the images have a different look and feel. That's not to say it's better.
Yeah.
Some people will prefer digital, because technically it is in many ways superior. It's a preference. It's what you like.
Yeah.
And I think it's possible for us to like different things.
Yeah.
So
I think
absolutely. Analog has a place just as digital does. I think possibly for me it's different because I started off in analog.
Yep.
So I'm remembering what got me started. For somebody who started in digital, analog is going to seem quite a strange
Yeah.
proposition.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just looking at analog play for one's common here, and how many of these those analog equipment is still around, and who are making parts for these equipment? I mean, processing equipment.
Um, I don't know. I don't know, but at one of the photography shows, I think it's the year before last.
Yep.
I can't remember the name of the company. They'd come out with a new film developing um, installation for small to medium sized labs. You know, not for huge numbers, but this was new equipment for
Yep.
what they saw as a new market.
Yeah.
And I suspect that a lot of these old developing and printing processing machines probably do have spare parts and probably are maintained and probably are still being manufactured because the print labs never actually went away. The demand might have declined, but they never went away. And I think many of them are now just gearing up the production a bit more because the demand is there. So I'm kind of optimistic about that.
Well, just to put you into perspective, if you go to Fujifilm's website in Japan, you can actually see that they haven't actually stopped producing film lab equipment, processing analog
No,
processing
right.
equipment. So
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
actually buy brand new, the entire lab from Fujifilm. So they haven't stopped making them. It's more like special order. But they are still have the production line there. They still have parts for it, and so that means that you can, if you want, still build a brand new lab. But from what I heard in the industry is that a lot of them are now buying used lab equipment. There are so many lying around at the moment, and because so many has closed down, and so there are equipments lying around. They're still useful because many of them will be maybe stripped and used as spare parts to fix other labs equipment.
Yeah.
But there will be so many equipments lying around now, and so many of the new businesses who are into analog photography, they simply buy or lease some of these older equipments to develop the films. So they are still around, and I think they'll still be around for many, many years, and to be quite frank. And from what I heard anyway, there's still plenty of equipment around.
I think as well. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not talking 21st technology here.
Yeah.
We're just talking about temperature control pumps and timers basically and tanks.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I don't think it's as if people will forget how to make them. It's just whether the demand is there.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting point. I'm quite encouraged by the new films that are coming out and the fact that we still buy so many old ones. I mean, Harman, which is like what used to be Ilford, is a very strong player now in black and white.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They will also print your images on black and white, proper black and white paper. So you can have a fiber-based print sent back to you, old school analog print.
Oh.
So you might have to jiggle it a bit with the workflow. With me, I'll probably digitize my negative, do all my editing digitally, then send it away to have it printed. Yeah, but you know the opportunity is still there. But I think what bothered me for a long time was the chemistry side of it, and how toxic it was to dispose of all these used film chemicals. I imagine a lab has proper measures in place. It bothered me a bit at home because I think developers are not particularly toxic as far as I understand it, but you shouldn't really be washing fixer down your sink.
No.
But then I thought all that, and then I thought, is that necessarily going to do the environment much harm compared to $500 million data centers using trillions of gallons of water every year just to satisfy our lust for AI? So I don't think analog film development is going to have a massive impact on the environment.
I mean, I did see, as someone talked about earlier, it has a comment somewhere at the beginning. It's about, should analog die? If analog dies, the digital will die with AI. And that's quite an interesting argument there. To be quite frank, I think AI, like I know we're sidetracking a little bit, but AI is quite worrying. Not so much in a productivity's point of view, but more so about creativities from an old schooler like myself, who like to take the raw ingredients into photography. With AI, you are literally perfecting photography artificially.
It's you're creating art out of your mind rather than the external world, aren't you?
Yes,
You're
yes, that basically,
it's
yes.
yeah. So it depends on how you feel about that. But then if you look back at through history, all the things that should have died but didn't. I mean,
Mm.
photography was supposed to kill painting, wasn't it? That
Yeah,
didn't happen. And then uh, color film was supposed to kill
so,
black
yeah,
and white.
yeah.
Color television, well, yeah, that did kill black and white television. I'll let that one go. But
Oh,
so many old things that were supposed to die because they weren't as good,
yeah,
they didn't because people still like them. And I think that's
yeah,
where we are with. I think that's where we are with analog film, and I think it'll be the same with photography versus AI.
yeah, yeah.
I think many people are always already starting to feel like AI is like junk content. What is it? What's the term? AI slop. So that
I have no idea.
when when you go to watch a film,
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
go
yeah,
to
yeah,
watch
yeah,
a film,
yeah,
and you just go back and say, that's just so CGI,
yeah,
and you just don't like it as much as the old days when they used models. Like
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not a Star Wars fan, but
yeah.
I'm aware that Star Wars has gone very CGI, whereas
Yes.
when it started, it was all models and stop motion stuff and what have
I,
you.
I agree. I mean, but at the same time, I would say that with the right amount of AI, and if you do it tastefully, and it's good. But then there are films these days or movie these days. They just overkill it with AI stuff or the CGE stuff, and it just to me it's just completely ruining the experience. I mean,
Yes, yes,
if the entire film, like let's say using the fully CG movie Avatar, for instance, if the entire film is done with
yeah,
CG, and that is fine because you're going what you're buying a ticket for, right? Seeing something that is computer
yeah,
generated. But if you're suddenly having something that is possibly like very human, and you're throwing a lot of CG elements to it, like to change the background, to change the amount of
yeah,
people in the scene and those stuff, I'm very strongly against it. I mean, I've seen so many people done it very horribly, just really, really wrong. It doesn't look right. It feels wrong. And then it just, I just think it looks cheap, no matter how they look at it, how they're trying to describe it to you. But I just think it
yes,
looks
yeah,
cheap.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And to me,
So
it almost feels like, just because the film producer doesn't have enough budget, they just use CG to make up whatever is not there.
So I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, whereas you would almost prefer it if they were to say we can't film it, so don't try, just do a
Yep.
different film that doesn't
Yep.
have that in it. But yeah, and I see from the comments people are pointing out to me all the other old technologies that they did. Yeah,
Uh,
VHS. Yeah,
VHS.
that's gone. That's gone. Betamax gone. CDs. Yeah,
CDs, or more or
going.
less, or more or
Yeah.
less. Although it's
Who
kind of coming back, right? All the vinyls and CDs are coming
Well,
back.
this is thing. Who would have thought that hipster folk would go and buy vinyl and chuck out all their old CDs? Nobody
Yeah.
ever saw that coming. Well,
And
say chuck them out. I mean, these days, if you've got an Apple Music account or
yeah.
Spotify,
And
why would you buy a CD?
it's strange. It's strange, like nostalgia, and uh, tape, cassette tape. Like you go on eBay trying to click on this Walkman, trying to see the price of the
Yeah,
Walkmans and
yeah,
tapes. They suddenly gone back up, like people are trying to buy
yeah,
Walkman and cassette tapes.
yeah. Oh, we got a debate about VHS now in the comments.
Uh,
Yeah, the VHS look. Yeah, yeah. I
yeah, yeah,
certainly remember that. But I think it's all a question of what you prefer and whether you quite like
yeah, yeah,
imperfections, because in some ways imperfections are part of the character of a thing.
yeah,
So if you look at analog film, you say, "Oh, look how grainy that is," but when it's gone, you miss it. So
yeah,
that if you going from vinyl to CD, when that first happened,
yeah,
everybody was saying, look, there's no scratches, there's no hiss, there's no pops, there's no crackles. And you think, that is amazing. Then after about 5 or 10 years, you start thinking, do you know what? This sounds too clean.
Yeah, yeah,
Where's
yeah,
my
yeah.
old Where's my old vinyl version? Because that had the hiss and the clicks and the pops.
People
That was
always,
part of it.
yeah, people always say, like, when it comes to music, it's like we're listening to vinyl. It says, oh, there's always a little bit of warmth that you cannot reproduce with digital music. I mean,
I
I
don't know.
never. I
It's,
mean,
yeah,
I'm not an audiophile, so I can't really tell. But
no,
at the same time, we talked a little bit about rendering. I mean, the look of the lenses a lot. We can kind of associate that kind of old analog look to digital look, and then especially in some of the older lenses, this certainly has some kind of aesthetic to it. There's certain glow and certain low contrast look from the older lenses compared to the modern lenses, because modern lenses are built for resolutions, built for sharpness and contrast, while the older lenses just don't have that. I guess that kind of similar thing, into like compared to music and maybe even compared to like VHSs and all the other stuff. And it's certainly very interesting, because I'm just looking at the camcorders here, this side to a
yeah,
screen.
yeah.
Camcorders are,
It's
you know
already,
what?
it's already started. It's already
It's
started.
coming.
Yeah,
It is coming back,
yeah,
right? And Panasonic just released 2 camcorders.
yeah,
Canon released 1
yeah,
camcorder this year.
yeah.
It's back. It's back. Although
It's it's
although it's not tapes though, they're still recording to memory cards.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But they could still have like a pretend panel that looks like a cassette holder.
I just bought one.
Really?
Well, it's a bit of
But
a fun thing, and it's one of these old 8 millimeters lookalike camcorder that has an analog gauge and everything like that. And but it shoot
yeah,
digital using a micro SD card.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't want to start another controversy here, but I do think that camcorders, especially amateur consumer camcorders, weren't great, but the shape was suited to
Oh,
video in a
yes,
way
you hold it like that.
that
Yeah.
mirrorless cameras aren't, because that kind of grip for video is much better than this.
Yes.
So I can see the appeal of
Well,
camcorders.
because you can see like even in bigger rigs and things like that, talk about like old, even modern day filmmakers, and you see the cinematographer when they're holding a camera, they put it on the
Yeah,
shoulder, they put the hand on
yeah.
the side of the camera to control everything, right?
The weight
And
the
then
weight's on the shoulder. Yeah,
yeah, and that basically how the camcorder evolved into like smaller format. You're using the right hand, holding the same position, the
yeah,
controls on the right hand. Basically, everything's one-handed control, right? And
yeah,
I can totally appreciate what you said there, because that's why you see a lot of the cine cameras are still built like that. Using that, you hold it
yeah,
like this, or you can tilt the grip so you can hold it in one-handed position, controlling start, stop, and the zoom positions all in one hand, one fingers. So it's
yeah.
very different to digital cameras that we have these days. You basically trying to make a photography camera into a video camera, which doesn't
I
quite
think
work out.
I think if you look at the Sony range, I don't know much about the Venice cameras at the top, but they are much more of a camcorder type design, and somewhere between the FX3, which is like a mirrorless camera, and the
Yep.
FX6, which is more like a camcorder shape. It does seem that the higher up you go in the cinema camera range, the more they evolve into this kind of camcorder shape. I mean,
Yep.
admittedly, mostly it's just boxes where you stick things on the back and on the top and on the sides. But again, the cameras aren't in good shape for video, and it's making me think actually it'd be quite nice to have a stills camera that you could hold in one hand like a little torpedo, wouldn't it? That'd be quite
Well,
quite
like
handy
just
to
like
use.
one of those digital rangefinders for golfing. Like you can hold it on one side, look through the little holder, and then you press that to capture photos.
Yeah, yeah. My golf was never quite good enough to need a rangefinder.
Don't give idea to any manufacturers. They might actually make one. Next thing you see, Sony might get one out.
So this whole film thing, I think what I think we forget as well is that you need to have prints.
Yes.
Otherwise, you take thousands and thousands of images that don't live anywhere except on your screen or in your social media, or you might send somebody one on the phone saying, "Oh, I've got this picture. Have a look at this."
Yeah.
None of these are quite like a print,
Well,
which is very low tech kind of thing,
yes.
but physically much more satisfying to
I
share
I
and
would
to look at.
I would say, like what you're saying is basically if I mean a photograph is not captured unless you print it.
That's
Know,
right.
like
I know
because
some people will say that. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's simple, right? If you can capture
yeah,
it, but then you forget about it. That's what digital these days. Most of the digital photographs end up being stored and not looked at for
yeah,
years, maybe ever. And I mean,
yeah,
certainly, there are people who capture images through the smartphones, like because I know, like it's very easy for Apple, Samsung, or Google just to say how many billions of photographs being captured every year, through their smart devices. It's easy to
yes,
throw a number in, but then
yeah.
how many of those images are being reviewed or looked
They
at
looked at.
afterward? Possibly
Yes.
ever. I would say 99.9% wouldn't be looked at. It's same thing with just even normal day-to-day digital photographs, right? Like I capture a photograph for families and couples and individuals for 20 years now. And ever since I moved to digital, I still shoot tons. And but the stuff that I deliver to my clients are limited, right? Because it's not. I'm not going to give them, let's say for a portrait session, I'm not going to give them 500 shots. I mean, I'm going to give them about like 20. And then and these are the 20 shots they will use, they will look at and to print or do something about. If I give them 500, I'm pretty certain most of them will be discarded and possibly
Yeah,
deleted afterward. And so
yeah,
what really is the point? And that is reflecting to a lot of digital evolution that we encounter these days. We have capturing so many images now, but really many of them are, I wouldn't even call them, they are memorable moments because they just simply just capture, click all the way through, having hundreds, thousands of photographs. Imagine, let's put you into a different perspective. Remember the days that we used to have contact sheets. We look into to put
Oh,
on
I
top of
love
the light
contact
box.
sheets. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're trying to graph pencil, you circle the ones you might print.
Yes.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to do the same thing with digital these days. And the Lightroom is supposed to replicate that process, right? Lightroom, you have all these a grid that you can
Yeah.
see the images. But because the amount of photograph that we're capturing these days, and when you start to load up all the photograph from your memory card into Lightroom, suddenly you see 5, 6, 7, 800 photographs in front of you. Not only that, that dilutes the experience, you're starting to becoming annoying because you're looking at all those images there. It's just, oh shit, which one is good? Which one should I look at? Which one should I process?
This is the problem. If you use this spray and pray technique, you're not solving a problem. You might solve a problem on spot, but you're creating a problem for later when you have to try and find the best one. When you've got 20 shots in a sequence of the same subject,
Yeah,
you've got to pick one out of those. That takes a little time
yeah,
because you've got to check for sharpness right the way through the sequence.
yeah.
It's great to have the choice, but with that choice comes extra work because
Oh yeah,
you have to sift through
absolutely.
these things, and
Yep.
you can. What I find is that if I take a batch of images today with the digital camera, I might take 100 images
Yep.
and come back feeling, well, I've got 3, 4, or 5 that are usefully different
Yep.
that I want to keep. Whereas
Yep.
when I shot on film, I would come back with perhaps out of 36 exposures, I might have 10 or 12. I thought, these are all right. I'll do some more work on these. So my hit rate today is much lower. And I think it's perhaps because I'm putting less attention into each one. It's so easy. It costs nothing.
Yeah.
It's easy. Just keep
Yep.
going, keep clicking.
Yeah. But at the same time, I wouldn't say that anything wrong with it, And
No, it's
what
just a different way of working, isn't it?
it's a different way of working, and it's certainly a different practice that we have to learn these days. But like you said already, you know, if we overshooting a lot, on the day-to-day basis, we ultimately creating a lot more work for us
Yeah,
afterward in during culling stage, and
yeah,
it's just so much to go through. It's harder to pick the one that you really want, and ultimately it's diluting a lot of attentions, not just at the shooting stage, but even afterward. When you see 20 different shots, I mean 20 in sequence, and you're gonna be really, really hard to pick the one that you want to
yeah.
have, because you may say, oh, these two might be quite nice, or maybe these five, it looks pretty good, but which one would you want to choose as your final shot? That's going to be tough.
It is.
And
You always worry you're choosing the wrong one.
yeah, but if
it's
you if
it's
you
it's it's almost as if you're not you're moving the work from one point to another. With analog, the work is there and right there on the spot.
yeah,
You have to choose your moment and choose a shot. With
yeah,
digital, you don't have to do that.
yeah,
But what you're doing is you're moving that decision making to later on.
absolutely.
Probably when you've had enough and you don't feel like it.
Yeah, I don't know about like anybody who's listening right now. I tend to get super excited when I can see that shot that I capture through the viewfinder at that moment in time. When I was holding the camera in to my eyes, when I'm shooting, if I see something that I capture that I think is the keeper, I will say, "Oh yes, I got it." That I got that reaction all the time, every single time when I'm shooting, whether it's for my climb or street or travel and things like that. When I see that through the viewfinder, when I click the shutter button, when I know that is a shot, I have that reaction, and that came from analog days, because in the analog days, I only have limited resources. I have limited time to capture that moment, because I'm not shooting 15 frames per second. I'm very, very slow. So I'm doing like 1 or 2 frames per second if I'm doing continuous on an SLR. But even if not, I'm doing most of the time I just do single shot. Because film were even though it was cheaper back then, but it's still expensive by today's standard, right? And you still have to buy rolls and rolls of films. And I remember the days when I used to go on holiday, a 2-week holiday. I only take about 10 rolls of films, and that's about
That's
360
quite a lot.
shots. That's quite a lot already, right? But 360 shots, that's all I have for my 2 weeks holiday. So like, I had to be very choosy what I shoot, and I may take 2 or 3 shots for that same location, same spot, or whatever, but I wouldn't waste it. And so everything, when I shoot something that I think I got the shot, I will nail that, as I would say, oh yeah, that's cool, I got that shot. And that kind of reaction kind of try and transfer into my digital life now. When I see that shot, I'll say, yes, that's cool.
It's a curious thing. With analog you can't check. With digital we've got so used to taking a shot, then we look down, check it's fine, oh good, I got that, then you go on to the next thing. That's actually quite disruptive, and it is
Yeah,
better to have that confidence that what you're seeing in the viewfinder, when the shutter fires, you should have that confidence that you've captured it. You
yeah,
don't
yeah,
need
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
check.
Yeah.
With analog you can't anyway.
No.
So it's good to have that kind of attention on what you're doing. But
Yeah.
it's something that's easily lost, because what you can fall into with the digital camera, you think that
Yeah.
looks good, take the picture, then you have to have a look at it, and then that completely destroys your flow.
That's
And
called
if and
chimping, right?
it's of course it is, yeah, it is because of all the
and
noises you make. So
and
ooh.
but I'm telling you, you actually said it quite rightly there. And how many times have I seen modern digital wedding photographers make mistakes like that, because they keep checking the shots after that, and they're missing
Yeah,
moments because they spend
yeah,
time trying to go through the shot they just made, but they're missing all those
yeah,
important moments happening right in front of them. And I have
yeah,
seen it so many times. Even now, I still see people making the same mistakes, because they will worry about they didn't get the shot or nail the focus. They quickly go to the back screen and check the shot while something
yeah.
important is actually happening in front of them. And
It would be better to have the confidence that the
yes,
shot is in the bag in the first
yep,
place, and
yep.
not to feel the need to keep
and
checking.
and and to be quite frank, with digital photography, it's actually easier to have that confidence, because it's what you see, what you get through the EVF. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think you need to check the back screen that much, you know, and then you know, you just have to feel the flow and just go with the flow and just feel the moment and just keep capturing it. And to be honest, at the end of the day, you know, what I always say to most of my photography student is that, you know, sharpness doesn't mean everything. It's the moment that counts the most. You know, like if you capture the right moment, even you miss the focus ever so slightly, it's not going to destroy the photograph. At the end of the day, you're capturing something in real life, in a wedding scenarios. Is everything's happening. You know, it's not going to be that critical when it comes to ultimate
No.
sharpness.
No.
When something standing still for portrait photography, and that is a different ballgame altogether. But when something is happening live, people are actually moving in and out, left, right, and center. You know, it's fine. I just don't think that will be a problem whatsoever.
I think it's having that trust in your technique and the equipment, so that
Yep.
you don't have to keep checking. But it's once you're given the opportunity to check, it's very difficult to let go and ignore it. Have you ever used the Leica MD? So
Yes.
that's
The
that's
one
the
without a
one.
screen.
So yeah, so it's essentially a digital Leica, but there's no rear screen. You
Yep.
can't look at your pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
when I first saw it, me and my colleague were like, "This is just a joke." But then it's not. It's not, because you can only look at your pictures when you get back home,
Yep.
put your memory card into your computer or your laptop. You can't look at them on the camera, and I think Leica was onto something with that. But of course, everybody thinks it's ridiculous. I'm
Yep.
not so sure. I'm not so
Yep.
sure.
Well, I mean, having said that, now there's a very cheap company called I can't remember, Snapcam. They make compact point and shoot digital cameras without a
Right?
screen. You
Don't
know,
know.
and apparently it's sold out everywhere.
Well, perhaps the way we should do it is just put some black tape over the playback button on our cameras
Well, look,
and
you know,
switch off the auto review and
I actually switch it. I
just
actually
not do
switch
it.
it off. And the best thing is, we got
Yeah.
flippy screen. Just close the bloody screen. They just don't look at
Yeah,
it, and
close the screen.
and
Yeah,
that
yeah.
solved the problem.
But you still got the viewfinder. You can still look in the viewfinder where it's playback.
That's true. That is true. That is true.
But if that is something that I think you don't notice with digital is that you're not forced to trust the process in the way that you used to.
Yeah.
And you
I
might
got
say that's a good thing because you can now check, but in some ways it's a bad thing because you're not getting on with photography while
no,
you're checking
no.
your images.
Yeah. Of course. I got one comment. It's quite interesting from this side to a screen here.
Yeah.
Using smaller SD cards that will slow
Oh
you
yes.
down. Well,
You can't
actually,
can't get them small enough now.
no, they don't sell 4 MB cards anymore because one image is probably not even big enough to store it. But actually, that's an interesting point, though. I know we can get really massive memory card these days, like up to a terabyte, 2 TB cards. But I always suggest, especially for photographers, don't use these big, massive cards in your camera. And for a few reasons, not just about slowing you down, but also about safety. You know, I know most cameras will have dual card slot. If you're lucky enough to have one of those cameras with dual card slot, you can duplicate them for backup purposes. But for me, is that when you use one large card, if something happened to that card, something happened to that camera, you lose absolute everything. Especially when you go on a trip and you store everything into that card. When you lose that, and that will be it. When you use smaller cards, you fill it up, you change card to another card, and then you keep
Yeah.
something. You always keep something. You always have a little bit left, you know. And so that's always kind of my thing. You know, I never use huge card to store everything into just one single location. I try to have either backup or use a backup disk that you can still do that digitally these days quite easily.
I have got some quite high capacity cards, but I never use the full capacity because I still tend to shoot in batches.
Yeah.
If I've got more than I never have more than one batch of photos on a card before I take the card out, put in the computer, copy it into my digital archive, maybe copy it into my stock photography, take the card out, back in the camera and format it. So I still think in batches. I would never have days and days of shots on a memory card unless I was on a trip or
Yeah.
something. But even then, I'd start getting nervous, and if I had my laptop with me, I'd still transfer them across
I mean,
every day.
one of my problem with digital, especially SD cards, is actually I don't know when they're gonna fail. I really don't.
If only they
It
could tell you.
yeah,
If only
it's
it had
you know,
a use by date on the back.
but that's the funny thing, right? I mean, if with analog, you don't have that worry, and with SD cards or any sort of memory cards, actually, that you just don't know when is gonna fail you. And it fails suddenly, and you just got this error, card error. You can't write to it, you can't retrieve
Yeah,
images, and when it's
yeah.
done, it literally is done, and you can't do anything about it.
Have you ever opened your memory card door on a very cold day? You've got gloves on, you're clumsy, your fingers are cold. You press the button, the card shoots out and goes on the ground somewhere. Have you ever had that? That's not
No,
fun.
luckily, no, not for
No.
me.
But if I wanted to play devil's advocate, this is a stupid argument. But with an analog camera, I mean, first of all, let me start off by saying I could not use an analog camera for my
Yeah,
work. It's
yeah,
just not practical. But I can use one for my own personal projects.
yeah,
And the thing is, with an analog camera, you've always got a hard copy, which
yeah.
is your negatives,
That's
and
another thing. Yes,
and
yes,
you can you've got a camera where you can change the sensor. You
yep,
just put a different film in.
yeah,
But I think the main thing that strikes me about shooting with an analog camera is you have to make decisions, and I think that is a good thing because we've all become quite. I say we've all become quite bad at this. I've become quite bad at this. I might not be the only one. I've become much worse at making decisions. Now I have all this choice. With
yeah,
a film camera, if I put black and white film in, ISO 100, and the weather turned dark and cloudy and stormy and rainy, I'd have to adapt. I had no
yes,
choice. I'd put it in. I'd made that decision. Then you use appropriate techniques and you take appropriate photographs in the conditions. You are kind of forced into making some actual creative decisions.
yes,
Whereas with my digital camera, I can bump up the ISO. I can
yep,
change to a different image style. I can go to
yep,
color, or I can
yep,
go to kind of vintage effect
yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
There's so many choices,
yes,
but that you don't actually arrive at any consistent decisions that
yep,
might improve your photography. I find I'm just going off in all sorts of different random directions on a whim without
yep.
proper direction.
I think you made a very important point about photography, especially answering one very question that many photographer learners or new students are asking: How do I develop as a photographer? How do I develop a style? How do I develop me having a signature of my photography? Right, consistency, which what you describe is one huge element there. You got to have consistent style, but more to that, if you break it down to that style, then you find that it's this choice that you make, the decision that you make about the certain aesthetic that you want to go for. If you keep mixing and matching different color tones, different stylistic color choices, and it dilutes everything. So when
Yeah,
people see images as so what is your photography? I can't, it's hard to tell because today you're doing black and white, tomorrow you have this kind of vintage sepia, and then another day you got this full color, very vibrant, and then suddenly you go into vintage again. It's no, you lack that consistency there. I'm not trying to say that you should be boring. You should explore, because photography is all about exploring creativity and all kinds of stuff. But when it's come to photographic style, if you look at all the great masters, they have a certain styles because they are consistent with their approaches, they're consistent with their color choices, they're consistently, especially during analog days, they are always using or choosing one or two types of film stock because they know very well how those colors react to certain temperature, the time of day they shoot. They are very familiar with those films' characteristics and exploit them, and that makes them becoming more consistent in terms of styling and all kinds of stuff. And and that we should actually take that into account in even in modern digital terms, because although we have all kinds of things that we can choose from now, I know like Fujifilm has been spoiling us with all kinds of film simulations there, but how many do you want to use? You got 23 different choices. Yeah, are you gonna do 23 different choices in a day? Or that means that none of your photograph is going to be consistent. They all look kind of different. And then like even not talking about Fujifilm, you can see a lot of these film simulation software. Lightroom got different style choices and the color palettes. It makes a match of everything, and you suddenly lose the consistency that you're really hoping to create as a photographer, as a style that you want to create, and people can associate you as a photographer. And I think in some way having too many choices is bad, because it's good for fun. But if you really want to develop as a photographer, you really should strip that away, choose something that you really enjoy doing, and stick with that, and try to master that color that you want.
I mean, sometimes, we all think choice is good, constraint is bad, but that's not necessarily the case. We're all humans. Sometimes constraint is what
Yep.
we need to channel ourselves in a specific direction. So, for example, I visited
Yeah.
Corfe Castle in Dorset last year, which is very picturesque ruin, very spectacular. I came back and I did some shots with a kind of dramatic sepia tone. I did an infrared effect. I did high contrast black and white. I did vintage retro look. I did a dozen different things, all interesting enough experiments in their own right. But I came away with no proper consistent story about that place. I would have been better off taking a film camera with a black and white film, so that I didn't have these choices. I was there to do one job with one tool that behaved in a certain way.
Yeah.
I think I would have got a much better set of images from that than by having all this choice. Because it's like being a kid in a sweet shop, isn't it? You go in every direction at once and stuff yourself till you're sick. And I think that can happen with image editing software. Yeah.
Because once you choose a film stock, a particular film stock, once you load that film into the camera, you set yourself some limitations there. You set yourself limitations. Yeah. You work within those limitations, and then you're trying to find shots that will work well within those with that limitations, and that's the key. While nowadays we just have a vast choices of settings and latitudes and whatever, everything with the camera these days. You lose that constraint. You lose unless you're very good at self-disciplining yourself, constraining yourself in the choices that you make. And that's another reason why I said to so many of you already through my other streams and other videos that I make, all I care about, even in modern digital cameras, all I care about is how I can set the exposure triangle, where I can find the ISO button, change aperture, and whatever, CAF, AF, single AF. That's all I need. I don't need all the other things. That's why I never go through all the manual systems. I never really even bother looking into, all the different modes that I can set and things like that. All I care about is just very, very simplistic things. Because as a photographer, at the end of the day, I just want to execute my shot. I want to see how I do it. And that's it. Just press the shutter button, capture the image.
I think sometimes you have to deliberately constrain yourself in order to channel your thoughts properly.
Yep.
I think with digital, a couple of things I've done I've found more successful is with my OM cameras. I will use one of the black and white film presets, perhaps high contrast with a bit of grain, and then when I get back home, I've got all the raw files, but I'll try and work with just the JPEGs. Because those are the ones that represented my intentions.
Yep.
And I think if you only shoot raw and you get your images into Lightroom, what I would suggest is you find a preset that reflects the style and intention you had, then apply to all of your images.
Yep.
Even if you had to create virtual copies and put them in a new collection, just apply that one preset to all of them, and then just work from that. Sorry, excuse me. Sorry.
Yep, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly a very interesting point about constraining or restraining yourself from all these distractions, I would call it, and in modern digital cameras, as good as they are, as capable as all these functions are, you can see that why you see professional photographer, whether it's going to be a bird photographer, wildlife photographer, street photographer, or myself, portrait photographer, we only look for very, very specific settings in that camera, and we can simply ignore the rest for that very, very reason, because we just look for the stuff that we need to photograph stuff that we want, and that's all about it. Because once you're starting to dilute everything, you're having all of these like trying to learn and master every single feature in that camera menu. It's not going to be helpful, because you, first of all, you're going to confuse yourself, because when you arrive at the location, when you're trying to shoot something, all you're thinking about is that which is the best setting for this scene, which is the best setting to capturing this or that. And to be quite honest, by the time you make that decision, that moment might have gone already. So like, this is something that, you know, I always say to people, you know, we always talk about and discuss about, you know, the capturing the moment, trying to capture the critical moment. That's the essence of photography, right? But if you miss that moment, spending that time really strolling through the menu, trying to find a setting, trying to set up your cameras, you kind of defy that the thing we just said it 2 seconds ago. You know, you're trying to nail that shot at that moment. So you really got to be ready. And the only thing to do that is to strip away all the distractions and focus on the stuff that you can control. And as simple as that.
It is distraction. It's a problem, isn't it? When you can have everything,
yeah,
it's very difficult to choose anything.
Yeah,
it's very difficult to be consistent when everything is possible. So I kind of think I have to kind of gamify the whole thing, because I know what I'm like. I will do 1,000 random experiments from one session of one photographic session, and it's just ends up in chaos. Individually, those experiments are interesting, but it doesn't help you build any kind of body of work or any kind of consistent personal style. So going back to what you were saying about your students to me and saying, how do I develop my style? I think that the point there is, again, is constraint. You need to get rid of the distractions. It's very difficult to form a style when you've got all these things around you buzzing in your head and kind of tempting you away from the route you've chosen. You need these constraints to keep you on a straight and narrow, in a way.
Absolutely.
Depends on your mind. I've got the sort of mind that is too easily distracted. Other people may be more intellectually rigorous.
I just reading through some comments at the moment. This slide to a screen. I want chimping stickers in Red 35's merch shop.
You should do that.
Stop chimping stickers. Stop chimping.
Well, you could make it as a screen protector, couldn't you? For those cameras where you can't fold the screen in. A screen protector, and you can't see what's underneath it. So it just says stop chimping.
That's called Gorilla Glue, and a piece of wood. Look at this. Me, Phil. Sorry. Go on.
No, that's fine. I haven't got anything useful to offer.
Okay, for me, film is fantastic. It's just far too impractical and expensive. Steve McCurry and Harry moved to digital from film, and all said it was too much hassle and wouldn't really go back. You know, there's two way looking at that, I think, and but I certainly love both. But professionally, commercially, I really shoot digital these days, and you're quite right in some sense. Is film is hassles, is slow, and but I think that, you know, like, to appreciate digital, or to appreciate, let's put it that way, to appreciate photography, you should learn from the analog, learn from the basic, learn from the fundamentals, because we literally spend a half an hour talking about how much distraction is with modern digital photography. You know, modern digital cameras are way too complicated for what it is, and for someone new to photography, picking up a digital camera, even if it's an entry-level digital camera, is still having too many features, because they need to learn the exposure triangle. What is ISO? What is shutter speed? What is aperture? If they don't understand any of those elements, it's going to be a tough journey for them in the future. So, like, got to master those stuff. And analog is literally stripping all the distractions away, just focusing on those three things.
I think we should probably remember that during the 90s, there was like an era of highly, can I say this, electronicized film cameras
Yeah.
that were quite nasty and irritating even before digital started. So we're probably talking about a golden age of the 60s and 70s and 80s, I
Yeah.
would guess. I'm not sure the 90s were a great time for film cameras, but others
Well,
may disagree. But
the 90s when they having some really cool techs came out. I think I remember the eye control AF from Canon. I love that. I really love that. I still have one camera here with the eye control. Yeah, it's cool. I think it's
but
cool tech.
but you know what would happen if I had that, Jimmy? Because I'm so easily distracted,
Yeah.
I'd be trying to photograph something, then I'd see something in the corner of the frame and I'd look at it, and then focus would go over there. That would go horribly wrong for me.
But that's fun. That's a fun. That I think the 90s. It's definitely the end of analog, and in my eyes, because for the late 90s and early 2000s, that's when really digital was starting to pop out everywhere, especially in the point and shoot market, and that's the time when it started to eat away all the traditional point and shoot cameras, and but the 90s were a good time for me, and there were a lot of interesting techs came out, and for not digital, but still analog SLR, but they digitized
Yeah.
SLRs, and sorry, is it digitized
Electronicized.
SLR?
Electronicized. That's what I'm going to call them. Electronicized.
When you need to use a battery, when you need to use a battery for
Yeah,
the
when
camera,
you need to use
yes.
a battery. Yeah,
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 yeah. When I thought that was fun. I mean, they were simple, but then but there are some techs to be envy about. I remember those days when Canon kind of leads the way in text, and Nikon was still very traditional cameras, and they're more focusing on the capturing speeds, the precision of the optics, and everything like that. But Canon were playing with text a lot, and they just like now, right? Like now they're more focusing on the focusing text, and they're really into trying to get the eye focus, with the EOS 50E, the 70E, and the EOS 3. They all have these eye focus things, and I think there was fun time. Good or bad, that's another thing, but it's a fun time.
Well, I think in contrast to that, I know you've reviewed more of these lenses than I have, but today's Chinese lenses are very much manual dumb lenses where you have to focus manually,
Yeah.
and it turns out that's not so bad after all. You know,
No.
you can't do the kind of shots you would do uh, in some areas of photography, but for most photography, it's
Yeah.
actually not too hard to focus a lens. It's just a different habit. It's
It
very
is,
easy to
yes.
forget to do it, but
Well,
it's just a habit, and I think in some ways that is easier for beginners than having autofocus, because
well,
with autofocus you're constantly second guessing what the
yeah.
camera's trying to do.
Well, I'll give you a few examples that I encounter almost every day with all my cameras. Yeah, I'm telling you, I have a lot of different cameras now, and from Fujifilm to Nikon to OM System to Lumix, and I use them kind of in rotation, doing different kind of shoots. But they all have same problems here and there. And first of all, they always misfocused if I shooting backlit situations. They always misfocus when I shoot through glass, for instance, when I'm trying to do something creative, when I'm trying to shoot through something transparent, trying to create a depth. And the camera doesn't know where I want to focus on. They're always trying to focus on something that the camera thinks they sees, like whether it's going to be a subject or something in front of the cameras. So they always misfocus, and in that time I have to revert back to manual focus, which is something that I'm very comfortable with because I use manual lenses a lot. So I can imagine in those instances you will find a lot of photographers will struggle because if they're so used to AF, and when something doesn't happen, when they have to do that quickly, especially in my line of work, I'm shooting with clients, for instance. These are pay clients. I only have a limited time before they will say, "Can you hurry up, please? I need to finish off the session now," kind of thing.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
So like I have to work very swiftly. I have to do very quickly, and then basically I just needed something very quick. Turn it to manual focus or manual override. 2 seconds. All I needed to do just do that, and so. I think manual focus is still very much my daily thing, regardless of what it is. I just have to use it to override certain situations when the computer think something completely different to what I want to do.
Well, I think as well that sometimes your camera's autofocus can try so hard to do the right thing, you don't know what it's doing. So with
Yeah,
my EOS R8, which is very handy for video and product shots and other kinds of photography, it has touch AF.
yeah,
So that
yeah,
wherever you left the autofocus or whatever
yeah,
mode you left it in, when you're handling the camera, even if you put it in your bag for a moment and your thumb perhaps touches a bottom corner of the LCD, I
yeah,
get
yeah,
this a lot. The focus point goes there because the camera thinks, oh, hello, they touch the screen. It must want me to focus there. Doesn't matter whether I was in area AF mode. It thinks, oh, it's a single point AF down there. And then I
yeah,
go to
yeah,
take a shot and I think, where's the focus point gone?
yeah.
It's down there. It's down there.
Uh,
But I'm sure there's a way to get around that in the manual. I need to disable touch
yeah,
AF, but then there's other times when it's actually quite useful.
yeah,
So here I am having to look at the manual, having to go through the menus, trying to figure out how to stop the camera doing what it's doing, when really I could just focus myself, couldn't I? Could just do it myself.
yep, absolutely.
If it's like landscape or travel or scenic shots or
Yep,
close-ups or macro or still life, just do the focusing yourself. If you're doing
yeah,
sport or people or action or wildlife, not so much. But manual focus is fine for so much of what we do. But it's become more difficult to do
yeah,
that today than it used to be before.
yeah,
But the EVFs in mirrorless cameras are now so good, you hardly have to zoom in to do
no,
manual focus
yeah,
because there's generally enough depth of field, whatever aperture you're shooting at, to cover any slight variance. You don't need to focus magnify. You don't
yeah.
usually need that
And,
kind of accuracy. You can just see.
and to be honest, I think a lot of um, things that we just talked about also relating to that the behavior of modern digital photographers, especially full frame. The reason I say that is because a lot of full frame photographers are very into the shallow depth of field look, and when they have that,
Yes,
you
yeah,
know, and
yes, yeah,
they shoot
yeah,
everything wide open,
yeah, yeah,
and you know, like in the film days, and we don't look at depth of field the same way as digital photography these days, and the
yeah,
aperture is a mere tool for us to get light into the film. Yes, subject separation is important, but it's less important if I don't get the shot in the correct exposure. So like and also in terms of the focusing, you know, like because we know in some type of photo shoot we need critical focus, and if we are struggling with time in commercial shoot, for instance, we need to basically stop down the lens a little bit, just give us a little bit more room for focusing errors. So in that case, you know, even though the lens may be a 1.2 lens, but we'll shoot at f2 or f2 or f2.2. So just to give us a little bit more room for us to wiggle, you know, if we do move the body a little bit, and you have that
yeah,
latitude or that kind of room for us to adjust for misfocusing. And likewise, if we put the subject off center from the, because back in the days, don't forget that focusing points are very just basically center. You know, a lot of the SLRs. You know,
yeah, yeah,
and if
yeah,
you move the subject off center, is, you know, if you want to use AF, you basically you turn the body, focus on
yeah,
a subject, and you move away to put the subject on whatever side you want to do in the frame, and you if depending on your position, how far you're from the subject, you're always going to lose a little bit of focusing because of the focal plane may be
yeah. Of
different in each
course, yeah,
camera, the
yeah.
lens.
And
You have
you
to,
move forward and back.
yeah, so that you have to be very, very careful when it comes to that kind of shooting, and
Yeah, yeah.
it's less of a problem these days because we have literally full frame focusing these days.
But I think perhaps as well that the accuracy and resolution of digital cameras has made us a bit fussy. Do you think?
I think
Because
so,
when
yeah.
if you're shooting analog film, there's less resolution, there's more grain, and it's much more tolerant of minor focusing errors because the film never had the resolution to
No,
show them. It's a different kind of photography. The detail rendering isn't there,
yeah,
but maybe it doesn't need to be
yeah, yeah,
because if all you're going to do is look at a thing on a 4K screen or do
yep,
a 10 by print or even a 20 by 16 print, you're probably going to find that analog film has enough resolution to satisfy you
Oh yeah,
visually
yeah, yeah.
anyway. So so in a sense, we've all migrated over to much higher levels of resolution that have made us a little bit fussier, I think, about image quality. We become very concerned about resolution, aberrations, and focusing, and we've kind of taken our eye off look, the overall look of the whole image, and whether that works.
Uh,
We again, this is perhaps just me. I'm imagining I'm not alone.
yeah,
But you
yeah.
become so preoccupied with the details that you're not looking at the picture, and the picture is why you did the thing in the first place.
Absolutely. I mean, I use wedding for another example. For instance, like in the film days when I used to do my weddings, and when I do group shots, it's the thing is, not like digital now. We can keep ticking until I can see everybody's looking at the camera and smiling, right?
Yeah,
In
yeah,
in the film days, I only do maximum 3 frames for any group shots. And then that three
right.
frames
Yes,
is always someone blinking or someone looking away.
yeah,
But back in those days, no one ever complains because look, they understand and they just wanted to see everybody there.
yes.
Whether they look away, blink. Okay, just what it is, right? You can't get 50 people looking in the same way without blinking. It's really hard.
And because the idea of perfection is possible, we become just completely absorbed by it. So I remember a launch of Photoshop Elements version, I don't know what, several years ago. One of the big selling features was you could merge 6 or 8 portrait group shots
Yeah,
so that everyone was smiling and looking at the camera in each
yeah,
one.
yeah,
And somehow Adobe convinced everyone that this was an amazing, not just amazing, but essential. You can't take a group shot unless it's perfect. But as
yeah,
you just say, people have always accepted the limitations of the process. It's not
yeah.
really not that big a deal, I don't think.
No, no. Like you say about sharpness, right? Like whenever
We've
they see
become
the wedding.
obsessed by perfection.
Yeah, I mean, like, people used to print wedding albums. When they look at the wedding albums, oh, that's a nice shot. That's a nice. Oh, that's so
Yeah,
beautiful. They never kind of like digital. Where people just blow it up to see their face, right? In
yeah.
100% just to see whether they can
Well,
see any lines in their face and things like that.
that's where you end up with the contradiction, isn't it? Because you get a shot where the bride has just got the perfect expression in a kind of impromptu moment, say, but it's
Yep,
not quite sharp. Or you've got another one with quite a boring expression where you can see every eyelash.
yep,
Which
yep,
is the better photograph? And I think digital imaging has led us towards thinking that the photograph that's technically better has a
yep,
head start over
yep.
the other one, and
Yeah.
that's I think that's not helped us at all.
No, no. I mean, I just lead on to this. We got this comment right here from Paul. That capturing the
Right.
critical moment is what Pro Capture was made for. I mean, we
Mm.
talked about that this earlier. I mean, there's nothing wrong about that. Pro Capture is really really awesome technologies, and that allows you to really nail that moment if you're really into high speed photography, for instance. But what we're trying to say is that I think the discipline that we used to have in the analog days is slowly disappearing with the adoption of this type of technologies, because now we're relying on these type of technologies to nail that shot. And again, once again, nothing wrong with that, but the thing is you're creating more work for you afterward. And second is that when you don't understand, and I'm not talking about you, but like, let's say some new photographers, they when they don't know how to anticipate a shot to observe in the first place, just relying on these type of technologies is kind of define the learning process of the whole entire photography in the first place. I think that people need to appreciate about the photography in terms of executions, because execution, I mean, may sound like a big word, but it is a big word because
It's
that's when you press the shutter button to capture that moment.
it's understanding your subject and understanding when things are going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's not always very easy. I have used Pro Capture and I do quite like it, but I've also had situations where I thought, how long can I stand here with my finger half pressing the shutter release? And you just give up. I think if you've got if you're at a soccer match and somebody's just taking a corner,
Yeah,
that's fine. You can use pro capture because you don't know how long the run up is going to be, but you know it's going to happen soon.
yeah,
But if it's like some random event
yeah,
and you don't know where it's going to happen, like you've got a child doing something, and you think it's going to be a perfect moment any second now, you could be there like 5 minutes with your finger half pressing the shutter release, which is
yeah.
quite
I mean,
painful. But
I think pro capture is really good for a lot of wildlife stuff, especially like
yeah, yeah.
certain scenarios or certain high speed shot that is definitely going to miss if you do it like manually, and
Or if you think like a bird of prey is just about to swoop,
yep,
that if you, but then you do have to know your subject, don't you? To
you
know when
do.
that's going to happen. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, for
but
instance, in like a bird catching a bee or whatever, that kind of shot.
yeah,
Kingfisher for diving into the
yeah,
water.
yeah,
Pro capture is brilliant for that.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
think it should be used in a very specific terms, but like what we talked about earlier. These days a lot of people are just relying on the super fast capturing speed the camera offers to do all kinds of photography. I think it's kind of unless you're doing commercially, because I do that. I mean, commercially is fine because you do need to deliver to your client. That's what they pay you for. But if I think for personal photography, I like to take my time. I like to step back a little bit. Just kind of go back to the Zen moment I always have when I'm standing on the street. Just kind of be isolated, observe, and see if there's anything happen, and
yeah.
trying to find that shot.
So I think the way I would look at it is I could never go back to analog for the stuff I do for a living. It's just not practical. But I also feel a need to try to get back to what got me excited about photography in the first place. So for my own personal work, analog has a very strong draw for me, especially now after this year's experiences with cameras and developing
Yeah,
and negative digitizing. It's a lot simpler than I thought it was going to be, and the results are better than I thought they would be. So I think for work, digital is the only thing that makes any sense. But for my own personal photography, analog I think is where I might go, because I think we all now and again feel the need to reconnect with our old selves, don't we? And
yeah,
you can become a professional photographer, have a career in photography, and not
yeah.
notice that you've left behind
Oh
all
yes.
the inspiration and enthusiasm that you had at the start.
I, I,
And
I,
one day
cer-
you realize this.
I certainly feel that after I picked this up like a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
Like I said earlier, for those who just joined us not long ago, I just recently got sent this to review just a couple of weeks ago. This Lomography's latest film point and shoot camera, and I also said that I haven't touched any film cameras for about 5-6 years since COVID, basically, and since then, my business picked up. That's good after COVID, but I've been doing digital since, and I haven't really touched any film at all. So, having played around with the film camera, all of a sudden, it really kind of brought back a lot of good old memories. And not only that, it's kind of like you said, you used the word reconnect, kind of reconnected me in many ways that I kind of forgotten, when I was doing digital. It's in a good way, because like today, this morning I was shooting with another client. I actually slowed down a little bit when I took, and it's quite funny, it's in a funny kind of sense. And I slow down in digital, it's weird, because I'm so used to shooting fast, and just commercially, because time is money, so I just keep shooting quick,
Yeah.
just trying to churn photos out. But this morning, I actually took my time a little bit more than usual with my client, and that is after a couple of rows of this. It's kind of weird, but it did
It,
have an impact on me.
I think it's as well. It's changed the practice of photography because when I got married, it was our photographer had Hasselblad 500 cm. Everyone did.
Yeah,
Every wedding photographer did on a tripod,
yeah,
and it kind of made the whole thing very official. If he said, right, I need this side of the family here, you
yeah,
did it because it's a very serious undertaking. I think these days a lot of photographers try and be more inconspicuous
Mm.
and less authoritarian and just try and capture the moment. But
Yeah.
it makes life tough for them because they can't boss people around in the same way. You know, if you've got a big camera on a tripod,
Yeah.
you can tell people what to do and they expect to obey you. But if you're being kind of inconspicuous and polite and staying in the background, it's very
Well,
difficult. It's much more difficult to get people organized.
I guess that's two ways of looking at it, though. You know, like you know, I think that yes, having that authority would give you a lot of formal photography styles, and
Yeah,
but
so
if you want a little bit more like candid, a little bit more natural
yeah.
lifestyle kind of photographs, uh, it's almost
You've got
complete
to be faster
opposite.
on your feet. Yeah,
And
yeah,
also, you got to
yeah.
be completely opposite. You actually have to be a friend of your subject. You know, you kind of have to loosen them up
Yeah.
to bring out their character as you can capture it on
Oh,
screen.
forget that.
And
No,
that's
no,
what I
you're
had.
right. You're right. It's a
That's what I had
different
to do all
style.
the
Yeah,
time. Yeah,
yeah,
it's very different style, and then and the lifestyle photography is very different these days. You have to kind of work with the client. You have to be
yeah,
friend with
yeah,
them, and then
yeah,
so that way that you can capture this natural moments, natural motion of them when they're talking or walking or swinging, whatever, you know, and also, you know, once they befriend with you, and then once they loosen up, it's quite easy to get them to do things as well. You're not like, you know, in a way, you're still kind of bossing them around, but at the same time, you
yeah.
know, just in a slightly different
But
way.
they don't know it.
Yeah, they kind of don't know it. It's like, yeah, you're quite a cool now. Let's swing around.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's the
No,
difference.
I agree. And I was just drawing attention to a different style of commercial photography
Yeah, yeah,
because back in the day with analog film, it was a very formal process. Now you might think that's a good thing, you might think it's a bad thing, but it was very distinct
yeah,
to
yeah,
the way we do things, the way we do things now. And
yeah,
it's interesting as well that the old school wedding photographers always kept the negatives. You never got the negatives. They
yeah.
kept hold of them. Only got the prints.
Absolutely. I'm just looking at Mark's comment
Interesting.
here. It's
Yeah.
very exciting to wait for your scans to come back, and that's for sure. Until I see my result, that is.
Well, I don't know what you're shooting with, Mark, or whether you're shooting with black and white or color or whatever. I don't currently send my films away for scanning. I'd rather do it myself, and I have been impressed by the results I get with a camera. It seems like a very low tech way that shouldn't possibly work, but I think it's given me the confidence to keep shooting analog because the results are very good
Yeah,
and you're in
yeah, yeah,
control. I've had scans done commercially that I've not been particularly happy with because you don't
yeah,
get control over the exposure in the same way, and often they're scanned at resolutions which you would rather have a higher resolution, or they insist on sending you these giant TIFF files when you'd rather have JPEGs. It's too little control for my liking.
yeah. And also, Johnny.
It's quite expensive too. Quite expensive.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
Mm.
Canon is still making talking about iFocus
I
in the
know. I
newest
know.
camera.
I know.
I heard about that, right? They haven't quite make it, didn't they? Canon, not yet
Yeah,
anyway.
it's no, it's still
Is it new?
it's in there, isn't it? In the
Is it?
R1 and R3, I think they've got iFocus.
Oh yeah, they did, didn't they? Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes,
yeah,
they did. Yes, I've never really tried them. I don't know how good how well they work in iFocus. I heard mixed thing about the iFocus thing.
yeah. Well, you're best at doing what you're used to, aren't you? Whatever you're
Yeah,
used to is going to seem most natural. I think maybe you would adapt to iFocus, but it seems to me like one of those things that it's like AI subject recognition. If you find it useful, go for it. But there's no
yeah,
guarantee that you will find it useful.
yeah. Actually, speaking of Canon, I don't know if you heard. There was a Japanese a report, I think 2 days ago, have been I wouldn't say confirming, but it's um, revealing that Canon is indeed making a retro digital camera.
That's good. that rumor's
That's
been
been
going around for a little
that's
while
been
now.
yeah, but I think this apparently is a very credible source, and then and it's rumored to have a full frame 33 megapixel sensor in their latest
Okay. Yeah.
R6 III model. Um,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's going to be expensive. Then will be like the Nikon ZF then, but more
yes,
expensive,
yes, it would
twice the
probably
price.
yeah. If you're looking at the Z6 III, let's say it's £2,800, and I think that if they're gonna make it a retro style with the same spec as the Z6
Oh, the
III,
R6 III. Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
R6 III, and that would be
Yeah.
I would say about £3,000 mark. I think
It's
in
going
the
to be,
UK.
isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so. I think so. So, well, we'll see. It's definitely not Canon style, but who knows? Who knows? Who knows
yeah,
what's going to happen?
yeah. Well, so that
Interesting.
if they are doing it, and I'm pretty sure like Nikon is not going to sit there, and so there may be a ZFC2 or Z6 ZF2 at some point, to rival
Yeah.
the new spec'd up Canon version.
Well,
Fujifilm is still here. The X107 will come out at some point, and people still can't get hold of the X106 or
yeah.
5.
Yeah. All five. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Well, the thing is, though, Canon's in the same boat as Nikon with retro cameras. They stopped putting aperture rings on lenses, and there's
Yep.
no way back for them. So, and I think, and I'm saying this as a Canon user, the control rings, they're not a substitute for an aperture ring. You can set them up to control lens aperture, but the feel of it and the way of using it is just completely different. It's
Yeah.
not the same.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see what they do.
We'll see, but then when Nikon came out with the ZF and ZFC, the retro lenses also got no aperture ring, right? They just make it look like an analog lens, or an older
Yes,
lens,
yes.
but it's got no aperture ring either.
Yeah. No. Exactly. You have to control it from the body, and you've just got a tiny window on the top plate, and it's
Yeah.
just not the same. This isn't just silly nostalgia. It's a very significant practical thing. Like on an old Pentax,
Yep.
you've got your aperture ring on the lens, you've got the shutter speed dial. Where is it? Shutter speed dial on the top,
Yep.
and everything is visible even when the camera's off. Even when you're holding it in your hand, you don't have to put it to your eye.
Yep.
You don't really switch a camera on unless you want the meter, such as it is. But
Yep.
this thing of having camera settings visible and physical is actually very useful. It's quite
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. Oh, we got someone just came in here. Say, what a topic! Just shot my first roll of film. Oh wow! And went from Canon to Nikon ZF and Tiny
Yeah, yeah.
Linux.
Well,
Well, congratulations. Let us know how
Yeah,
you get on with
good
your
luck.
first roll of film. That will be interesting. And it's always exciting. If you never ever tried film before, that first roll of film may surprise you.
the images just look different
Yes.
in a way that you can't really replicate digitally. I think digital images are technically superior in any way you could care to measure it, but they have a kind of plasticized feel to them.
Yeah.
Whereas analog images have texture. I think it's like the difference between plastic and wood. You might like plastic, you might like wood, but they have a very different look and feel about them.
It's personal preference at the end of the day, I guess.
It is, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
There's no right or wrong answers there, but you're gonna enjoy
Yes.
that, because and you start to appreciate things that we said, like there's no substitute, in terms of the look of analog photography, because no matter how sophisticated all these film simulations are, from Fuji or from different softwares, you just can't replicate that look coming from a properly developed films.
It's the chemical process gives you a very different. It's very different tonality.
Yeah.
And very different feel to the detail. All I would say is if you shoot 35mm film,
Yeah.
don't zoom in. Don't zoom in. Look at the full screen. Don't zoom in. That's
Yeah.
not good. That's not going to end well.
They call grains, yeah, not noise, but they call grains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, with color film, how the grain has color because it's clusters of dye.
Yeah,
dye
yeah,
clouds. You can't. The digital imaging software is very good at monochromatic grain effects,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know of any software that can simulate color grain
yeah.
correctly, because it just gives you the same monochromatic grain. Minor point, a minor point for grain fans.
Oh, he actually replied that he actually got it developed.
Yeah,
So I hope the photos would have been just bad lay rest and new old things. Something
yeah,
to it is magical somehow.
it is.
But
It is.
yeah, it
You,
is.
not everyone reacts that way. Some people would just say, "Oh, it's all grainy and it costs too much." Other people can see the difference and appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know how many of you, anyone in UK will know, but I don't know about outside the UK. It's like Marmite, which is like a very intense spread you can put on toast and other
You either
things.
like it or you
To
hate
some,
it.
to some people, Marmite is the thing. There's nothing quite like it. To other people,
I love
it's
Marmite.
absolutely it's detestable and shouldn't even exist. So that's kind of what it's like with analog. I think
Uh,
everything about Marmite is wrong.
uh,
I like Marmite. I like Marmite.
I love Marmite.
Do do
Marmite and peanut butter. Yes.
do what together?
Oh, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You should try that. It's really
Really?
nice. Yeah, on
Whereas
toast. Yes.
I would say toast, thin layer of Marmite, and a poached egg on top. That's
I
good.
haven't tried. I haven't tried post it, but then
Yeah.
definitely, Marmite and peanut butter. Yes.
See, you're even getting cooking advice now.
Uh,
I mean, we've got everything.
right. Okay. Last couple of messages, and we're going to wrap it up today. Some people had a good history with film cameras. I guess people were able to run a dark room and knew how to print film. I never was not one of those people and don't miss using film. Well, actually, to be honest, not many of us had dark rooms, and even when I was shooting films, a lot of the time I just sent the films out to professional labs to have them developed for my commercial clients. I didn't develop my own film. I learned how to develop them, but I never really developed at home because I just don't have the space and at the time, and so I just never really did it. And I think it's more efficient and faster if I send a whole load of film to a lab to do it anyway, so I don't have to, keep being intoxicated by chemicals.
I did have a dark room. I had an attic space in my parents' house, which was the dormer part of it was where I had my bed, and then the back part of it I had a desk and my typewriter and my darkroom gear.
Oh yeah,
And I could black. There's a single window. I could black that out and do printing, but it was a bit dusty.
right.
So the only time it wasn't dusty was when I hung a film up to dry, because then all the dust would go woof onto the film.
Oh no.
That's why my negatives are quite dusty. So the only thing I don't miss about those times is the time, how long it takes. You shoot the film, you develop it, you wait for it to dry, then you start doing prints. You could be in there 3 or 4 hours and come out with perhaps 6 or 8 prints. And of course, it's all quite unrepeatable, because when you do any dodging and burning, you can never do it exactly the same way twice, which is why digital imaging is quite helpful, because you can digitize your negative and do what you want in Lightroom and make as many copies as you like before you print it. But yeah, if you're completely analog, the dark room is a place you would love or not love, I think.
Yeah. So I just keep checking my phone because my daughter keeps asking for more
Okay.
screen time. So just
Okay, all right then.
no, it's fine, it's fine. So last message, I think, from John. They're going through my 50, 60-year-old black and white next in scanning my 24Z camera. Interesting being able to use masking in Lightroom.
It is, yeah. I've found there's a lot more detail in the highlights than you expect. Shadows, not so much. But it's interesting though. Those old negatives will probably find we've got a lot in them.
I got one right here.
Visually, they are just so different to digital black and white.
I'm just checking what this
I
was.
see you've got strips of 4 there. Oh. That's
It's,
controversial, Jimmy.
it's just cut by the film company, by Fuji.
I know. I
They
know.
cut it by
Is
they cut it in fours.
is that color or black and white?
This is black and white.
It should be six, shouldn't it? Should they not cut it in strips of six?
No,
Bit
every time I
naughty.
send it to Fuji, they come back like this.
Controversial.
I know. I
mean,
hate it because
you
because
accept it with
I
color.
because I had these the folders. The folders are six. You know
Yeah, of course, of course.
they're in six. I every time I told them, why don't you just cut it in six? Why do they cut it in fours? And they're like, because my folder's in six. You know, you're just ruining my folder.
They'll probably be able to sell you some folders to take strips of four.
Forget
That's their end game. That's their end game.
That's Fuji way of doing business. I'm telling you. Right. Okay. So just to put a final comment, and so should analog die? And I think we both concur that no, it shouldn't. No,
I think we wanted to gauge a reaction from everyone watching, and I think it seems like you think the same way, that you need digital for practicality, but you don't want to see analog disappear.
No. Like you said, well, actually, like you said about painting, right? Never really went away when photography came along.
Yeah.
But but even like in the car and automotive industry, you know, like as much as we are moving in electric cars now, I think pretty much people still want to see, you know, combustion engines somewhere. You know, you can still hear it, you can still see it.
The price is going to go up, going to go through the roof for some tatty old Morris Minor with a combustion engine.
Yeah, possibly. Well, you see how much one of those well-preserved minis are. You know, the 1960 minis.
Yeah.
You know, a well-preserved a minis would cost more than you buy new back then.
Oh, many times more. But I've noticed that film camera prices are going up. I had an Olympus Trip 35, a terrific little camera. Gave to my daughter. I think I paid about 50 quid for it. You have to pay 100 now to get one of those in good condition.
Wow.
I know. And it's quite hard to find because those selenium cells, they degrade.
Oh, yes. If you find one of those cameras in a second-hand store, don't trust those meters.
No, because
they'll be gone by now.
The longer they're exposed to light, the more they degrade. So I've got a friend who's got a collection of about 10 Western selenium meters, and he says none of them work. And I said, I've got two and they both work. He said, you're lying. It can't happen. But I have, so I'm quite lucky.
No,
so,
it may
never
be
take
working.
them out and use them.
But it may be working. They may be like two stop out of exposure. You know,
it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's just a different experience using a handheld meter. But yeah, so I'm stuck there because they'll only keep working as long as I don't use them. So
then what's the point if you don't use them? But anyway, let's end it with a high note. This is the brand new camera.
Okay.
So if you guys want to check this out, it's on Lomography's website, and it's a pretty cool camera to say the least. But wait until my full review once I develop the films, and I'll be able to see whether this guy is truly good or not. But superficially, it is pretty impressive. Full metal camera. Excellent. And I want to show you the LCD screen, which is really cool. Don't know if you guys can see it.
Oh, it's got a bit of a flicker going
actually,
on there. But
it's because of the frame rate. So it's actually really cool.
Yeah.
If you forgot to wind the film, you press the shutter button. It actually show you the actual graphics. Wind the film. Wind the film. It actually show
wind
you
the film, idiot.
Yeah, it's really cool. And also, I don't know if you can see the aperture ring here. It's actually a manual physical aperture ring. When you turn, it actually closes the aperture in the ring. You can see it.
Good heavens.
So it's a proper manual camera. You can do full menu, aperture priority, shutter speed priority, or full auto. Pretty cool camera.
Whoever knew such a thing was possible.
Especially in Lomography's term, right?
Careful.
No, it's actually pretty cool. It's really, really cool camera. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us today. Have some fun. Talk about analog stuff. We're gonna maybe next week it was gonna be the last one for the year. I think. We're gonna have some Christmas party, and I don't know. Bring your drink, bring your mulled wine or whatever. You know, like join us for a talk. we'll just have some fun. Maybe looking back at this year, 2025, the good and the bad. Talk about things that we enjoy looking at and things that we don't like so much looking at through the year, and what else we're going to look forward to in 2026, and things that we would like to see from whoever, from all the camera makers or lens makers or whatnot, or something that you want to do in a new year, and that will be quite interesting. So next week is going to be very open topic, and just a Christmas get together. So remember, just bring your drinks over and some biscuits, mince pie, anything you like.
Mince pies,
We're gonna have a good talk, and before we call it for 2025, and so. Let's do this. Let's do this. Anyway, thank you very much for everybody for joining us this afternoon, this evening, or this morning, depending on where you are. And we will see you all very soon. Okay.
Excellent.
Until next time.
See you soon. Yeah.
Bye now.
Bye.